All right, again, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our second of our college preparation sessions this afternoon. So today's focus is on community college pathways. I'm really excited about this one. I haven't presented it before to this group, so I'm hoping that we have some good conversation and information shared today. My name is Samantha Jackson. I'm a college and career readiness consultant at NISD, and today I'm joined by my colleague, Julia, who's going to be helping with monitoring the chat and then adding in some colorful commentary as applicable, as Julia has experience both as a school counselor and also working at a community college. So super excited to have Julia's perspective with us today as well. So we're going to get started. I'm actually going to give you all a few minutes to chat with each other, because I know that's always a highlight. So I'm going to send you into some breakout rooms, and you can just share with each other your name, school, role, and then just, what are the top challenges you face when advising students about community college? Is this something that you're doing often? Is it something that you haven't really had many students going to community college? Anything that you would like to really make sure that we hit on today. So like I said, I'm going to send you into some breakout rooms for about 5 minutes, not super long, just so you have a chance to chat. Let's see. We'll do 3 or 4 people each. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and send you that. Again, just introduction, and then, talking about what you're hoping to take away. What are the top challenges you have when advising students on community college? Make sure I set this for 5 minutes. Okay, there we go. All right, I hope you were able to connect with some new friends. If you want to, go ahead and throw this information in the chat as well. So your name, school, role, and then if there's anything you want to share about top challenges you face. And also if there's a couple people that want to come off mic and share anything you heard about the top challenges you face when advising students about community college. Anyone want to share? Any takers? Okay, well, that's okay. Hopefully this is helpful information to everyone then. All right. So first, we're going to start off with what is a community college. So community colleges are publicly funded institutions that serve their local communities. Most often, they're providing 2 years associate's degrees, professional certificates, and job training. There are some community colleges that do also offer 4-year degrees. There are 4-year universities that also offer 2-year degrees. So it's not, a cut and dry line, but just generally, that's, what we're looking at. Now, we know that over the last several years in particular, there has been a pretty substantial increase in community college enrollment. And there are a number of factors that have led to this, but just going to highlight a few here today. So over the last year nationally, there was a 7% increase in community college enrollment, as opposed to a 5% increase in 4-year universities overall. So we're seeing it at a little bit higher rate than our 4-year counterparts. Here in Michigan, a couple of the reasons for that are the Community College Guarantee and Promise Zone programs. So if you're not super familiar with these programs, the Community College Guarantee was new last year, providing funding to students to attend community colleges for free. Asterisk there. As many of you, especially in our more rural communities, know, it is not entirely free for all students, but does provide huge financial benefits to students. So essentially, it is based on your in-district rate. So based on property taxes, for those of us here in Kent County, for students who live in Kent County, they are able to go to Grand Rapids Community College, which is our in-district community college, and tuition and fees are free. For those who, like our neighbors in Ionia County, who don't have a community college, they are able to attend Grand Rapids Community College at the difference between the in-district and out-of-district rates. So the state covers that in-district rate, they're paying the difference. So even for those students who aren't getting it completely for free, it is still a huge financial advantage to them to take part in that. That also means that students who, maybe your in-district community college doesn't offer a program that a student's interested in, they can still go to another community college, get that huge discount, and just pay that difference in rates. The other thing is promise zones. So some communities have had these for much longer than others. Really popular in our larger cities. So Muskegon, Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo all have promise zones. And each one operates a little differently, but for example, here in Kent County, through Grand Rapids Community College, students who live and go to school in the city of Grand Rapids are able to attend GRCC for free. And there's a couple other schools now. Kalamazoo, like theirs is a little bit broader. Students can attend, I believe, any school or any public school for free for tuition and fees. So again, just huge financial advantages for students, making this a really affordable and financially accessible option. Even without those programs, community colleges, we know, are also just generally more affordable. Just as an example here, this year, the tuition and fees at Grand Rapids Community College is $4,270. So without that free tuition and fees, $4,270 for a student taking a full course load. Comparatively, a local public institution is about $16,000 for tuition and fees. So about 4 times more than Grand Rapids Community College. And for a local private 4-year institution, it's $51,000 for tuition and fees. Now, of course, that is not the cost of attendance for students. We don't have many people that are just flat out paying $51,000, but it just shows you where we're starting at. We're starting at very different levels. And so it can be a very financially affordable option for students. Community colleges tend to have smaller class sizes, more personalized attention from faculty, also often offer flexible scheduling options. So in addition to those daytime hours, can also have evening classes, weekend, online, just providing more flexibility for students who might have other commitments in terms of work or caregiving. They offer pathways to high demand careers. So some that they can, go right on to the workforce after finishing that 2-year degree or that job training program. And also offer those transfer opportunities to 4-year institutions. And it also can be a great reset for some students. Maybe you have students that have, had some struggles in high school and they're looking for kind of a clean slate. Most community colleges are open admission, meaning that it doesn't matter what GPA they are leaving high school with, they can attend the community college. There might be specific programs that have different GPA requirements or things like that, but just can be a really great reset for some students before thinking about transferring to another institution if they're interested. All right, just gonna look at the chat here real quick. Okay. All right, so why are we talking about this as, I know most of our folks here are high school counselors. We've got even a few elementary and middle school counselors. So obviously you are not actually working with students on transferring, right? They're past your time when they're thinking about this. But really my goal in sharing this information with you today is to help set your students up for success so that they know the types of questions to ask, the things they should consider when they're thinking about going to a community college in the first place. So today we are specifically focusing on the community college to 4-year transfer kind of pathway. And so how can we set them up for success there? We of course know that there are many students that don't need to or don't have aspirations of transferring to a 4-year institution, and that is obviously perfectly okay. But that's kind of the population that we're focusing on today. So according to some recent research, nearly 80% of community college students indicate aspirations of attaining a bachelor's degree. So they're saying, I'm going to go to community college for a couple years and then transfer, finish that 4-year degree. However, we know that approximately 33% of those students who started a community college actually do transfer. So 80% are saying that they want to, 33% of them are doing it, and just under half of those students that actually transfer are earning a bachelor's degree. So about 16% of students who are entering community college that transfer are actually finishing their bachelor's degree. And again, there are many students who maybe determine along the way, oh, I don't actually need a bachelor's degree. That's not the route I want to take. Again, perfectly fine. But we can see there's a pretty huge disparity between that 80% that are going in saying that's what I want and the 33% that are actually doing it and the 16% that are actually attaining that bachelor's degree. And we know that this looks different for different communities. So probably unsurprisingly, it looks different based on income. So lower income students have lower rates of transfer completion as opposed to their high income peers. Age, so students who are in that more traditional 18 to 24 age range, the 18 and 19-year-olds have a higher likelihood of transferring and completing than those who are over 25. And by race and ethnicity and demographics. So, white and Asian students transferring and completing at higher rates than Black, Latino, Native American students. And so while community college is an option for everyone, there are some students that might benefit more from it, and some students that might actually not benefit from starting off there. We hear a lot of times from students, I'm just going to go to community college to just do my gen eds, or I'm just going to go, to figure out what I want to major in. And those are completely valid options and reasons to attend a community college. But we do know that there's some that it might be a better or worse fit for. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about academic, personal, and financial goals. We know that there's a lot of different reasons that students might choose to attend a community college, even if they eventually want to transfer or get a bachelor's degree. So the first is academic goals. So students who need foundational coursework or maybe some academic support, this can be a great place for them to start. Again, it can be a great refresh or reset for some students who just want to get started again before thinking about additional coursework. Can be really, really great for students who want to explore majors. So they have no idea what they want to do yet in a 4-year university. This is a great place to try some things out. I know that there is a fear from students that they don't even want to go to community college because they don't want to waste credits. They really aren't wasting credits, right? We're going to talk about kind of transfer agreements in a little bit. But a lot of those classes will still be able to transfer in, maybe not in a direct program, but as kind of general education credits. So it can be really great for students who just want to take a lot of different stuff and kind of figure out what they want to do. And then obviously for our students whose goal is to earn an associate's degree, a technical certificate, or some type of workforce credential. So for you as counselors, how we can help students determine if this might be the best fit for them in terms of exploring their academic goals. Our high school counselors, your students should be completing their educational development plans. And part of that is identifying a career goal. So not only saying, I want to be a this, but how are they going to make that happen? So thinking about what exactly is the career that they kind of have in mind right now, and what education is actually required for that career. Will a bachelor's degree or higher be required? And how can we help make that process smoother for them if they want to do that? But also considering if they just want a quicker route to the workforce. So I think one really great example of this is nursing, right? A lot of students think I have to go to a 4-year, I have to get a BSN, that's the way to do it. When in reality, students can go to a 2-year, get an RN, and go right into the workforce, after 2 years. And a lot of times companies will then pay for them to go back to school if they need to get a BSN or if they want to obtain a higher degree. So sometimes it's just about priorities. Do they want to, just do a little bit of education, get right into the workforce and maybe have to come back later? or are they really interested in pursuing that other option right now? All right, then thinking about financial goals. So again, we know that it is financially affordable for a lot of students. So obviously helps save on tuition and fees compared to four-year institutions. Can be a great option for students who otherwise college would be unattainable. So students from low income background, those who need to work part-time or have other family obligations. But it is important to understand financial aid options specific to community colleges. So again, thinking about the community college guarantee, the promise zone, those sorts of things. But then also thinking about now there are certain borrowing limits for student loans. And so thinking about how much of that they're taking up at community college versus later. So really trying to think through some of that stuff before making this decision. And if you have any questions or comments at any time, please feel free to put those in the chat. Julia is monitoring that for me. And Julia, if you have anything to add, feel free to jump in. So again, when we're helping students think about those financial goals, one thing I hear a lot from students is, it's just going to be cheaper. I'm just going to live at home. I'm just going to be able to commute. And students don't realize that sometimes those costs also do add up. So really helping them compare the tuition and fees, looking at those financial aid offers to see what the actual cost of attendance is for community college versus other schools they might be considering, thinking about what the actual difference between the cost of living at home or living in an off-campus apartment. Again, a lot of times students just assume that that's going to be cheaper than, having it all rolled into one in an on-campus living situation, but sometimes it's not. So we really need to think about what that actually looks like for students. And then, of course, all the extras, the transportation and books and things like that. And then last, thinking about students personally. So in terms of personal goals, some students just need a little bit more time before being let out completely on their own, right? We need some time to mature or decide on a career direction. Again, thinking about our non-traditional students, so people who are returning, parents, working professionals who just need a little bit more flexibility, and can be a great support for students who are facing life challenges or who may need to commute or want to stay closer to home for whatever reason. All great reasons for students to consider community college. All right, so next I am going to share some of the different ways that students can transfer from community college. This is in no way meant to be something that you have to memorize or you have to know the ins and outs of. I just want you to be familiar with it so that as you're talking to students or as they're considering, you can help set them up for success, understanding the questions that they need to ask, the things that they need to do to make sure that they are again, setting themselves up for success. So when researching transfer opportunities, they can find a lot of resources like articulation agreements and transfer guides that will show them directly how different credits at different schools will transfer. I think maybe a misconception is that students assume that all credits will transfer to all schools, and that is not the case. So it's important that they understand, okay, I'm thinking I want to start at Lansing Community College and I think I want to go to MSU eventually. How do those things actually transfer? Not saying that they have to have that all figured out when they decide to go to community college, but again, just taking a look at some of those things to see how they might transfer. And then understanding GPA requirements, course prerequisites, deadlines, thinking about that actual timeline for transferring. Some students are like, oh, I'm going to go for one semester and then I'm going to transfer. Is that really the best use of their time or their money? Just thinking about what that actually looks like. And then helping them when they're thinking about selecting a major. Again, they do not have to have a major predetermined before going to community college. It can be a great place for exploration. So really just encouraging them to explore early in community college. It's okay for them to change their mind or to try out a lot of different things. But using their EDP and the things that they've done already in middle school and high school to help map out those career goals and their academic interests to see what they might be interested in pursuing. And then really encouraging them to utilize experiences like internships and co-ops and other career building opportunities to help them narrow down what they really are most interested in. If you take nothing else away from this presentation, I really want you to remember that, again, you are not meant to, help them through this transfer process. That's happening way past when they're with you. Really encourage your students to work with their academic advisor. Their academic advisor is going to be the person that can help them figure out what they need to be doing at their current community college versus what will transfer, and really just help out that process. A personal kind of anecdote, I have a very good friend who went to community college for 2 years, transferred to another local public university. That was always her goal. She wanted to go into education, wanted to major in psychology and French. She knew that going in, never changed that goal. But she decided to just figure it out on her own. So she was looking at, transfer credits and everything between those two schools, thought she had it all figured out. But a lot of students don't realize that different schools have different guidelines for things like general education requirements. So a lot of schools will only let you use a certain number of credits from your major to satisfy those gen ed requirements. So she had loaded up on psych classes at community college, thought she had all these gen eds filled. And then when she actually transferred to the institution, they were like, "Ooh, no, those count towards your program, but they don't count towards all of this." So she thought she was knocking out gen eds at community college when really she was kind of doing the opposite of what she should have been doing. Had she worked more with her academic advisor, they would have been able to really help her map out what that plan looks like, and figure out what she needed to do there versus what she would be able to do at that four-year institution. So just highly, really for all of your students, no matter what school they go to, just recommend that they really work closely with their academic advisor to make sure that they are staying on track.
One thing to note about that is in the counseling world, we go after students, right? We will go hunt them down if they need to fill out their FAFSA. We'll hunt them down if they need to finish up their EDP platform. That's not usually the case with academic advising at the college level. Academic advisors are much more likely to have the student reach out to them rather than them going after the student. It's part of that we're now adults process. So encouraging them to advocate for themselves is super important.
Absolutely. Okay, again, there's a lot of words on this screen. This is not meant to be like, hey, memorize all of these different options. This is just sharing some information with you about what those options look like. So I'm going to go through 4, I think, different types of kind of transfer, and then I'm going to show you some examples of what this looks like. So the first thing to be aware of is just the term articulation agreements. So this is where they're mapping individual courses to their equivalents at another university. So English 101 at Grand Rapids Community College is the same as English 121 at this school, right? We're seeing how it's directly correlated. This helps to ensure that students won't lose credit because, again, not every school accepts all credits from every other school. These are often published online in transfer guides. And I have some additional resources later I'll share with you to help students look at those. And this is really, really helpful for students who are looking to complete those gen ed requirements or those prerequisites for them to look at. Another type of transfer option is direct admission. So this is when students who meet certain benchmarks like a specific GPA or credits are guaranteed admission to another institution. This doesn't always guarantee admission into competitive programs. So for example, if that school has a secondary application for nursing or education or business or something like that, it doesn't always guarantee admission into those, but it says, hey, if you have a 3.0 GPA, you have this many credits, you're going to be admitted to our school. So I will share an example of that in just a moment. Then what we're seeing a lot more of right now are program-to-program agreements. One thing that we've noticed is, again, we're seeing more students enrolling in community colleges, and we know that there is a decline in the number of students, the number of kind of typical 18 to 24 college age going students, just based on birth rate. And so colleges are trying to get really creative to find out how to capture more students. And one way that they're doing this is creating more of these program to program agreements where they say, hey, if you're in this program at this community college, then we will have you go straight into this major at our college to complete your bachelor's degree. So these agreements map out entire associate degree programs to specific bachelor's degree majors. They're highly structured, guaranteed pathways. They show exactly which courses count towards that major instead of having to kind of like pick and choose and try to create, what will go towards it. It includes recommended semester by semester plans. This can help to reduce what might be seen as, wasted credits. So an example of this could be a community college has an associate's in early childhood education, and the school has a bachelor's in early childhood education, and they're saying, hey, if you complete that program here, then we have this major here for you. One specific type of the program to program agreement is a 2+2, a 3+1. There's a lot of different combinations of years, but essentially a structured version of a program to program agreement that says, hey, if you complete 2 years of that program at the community college, then you'll complete your final 2 years here to complete your bachelor's degree. Again, there's 2+2, there's 3+1, there's different variations of it. But again, it's a very clearly spelled out plan for students to show them how that will transfer. This is really, really great for those students who are like, hey, I want to save some money, go to a 2-year college first, but I know that I want to do this. They can start off in that right away, get those 2 years out of the way, and then know that that program exists for them to finish up at another institution. The other thing to be aware of is the Michigan Transfer Agreement. So the Michigan Transfer Agreement is a statewide agreement that says students complete a minimum of 30 semester hours of college level credits, which will fulfill a portion of the lower division gen ed requirements at participating four-year colleges. That is a lot of stuff to say. Basically, it is a structured program to help students make sure that they're completing those gen eds. Again, every college has different general education requirements. So it can be really hard for students to figure out, okay, this one needs this and this and this, but this one needs this and this, and I don't know where I'm going to go. So this kind of helps to make that process a little bit easier for students. And there are still specific classes that they have to complete. They have to complete a credit of English and a credit of another English or communications and a lab class. And, it gives them specific guidelines still, but just makes it easier for them to understand how that can then transfer. Okay, I'm gonna exit out of my PowerPoint here for a second so I can show you some stuff. Okay, so again, you don't need to know the difference necessarily between all of those different types of transfer agreements, but I just want to show you what those can look like for students. And if students are interested in any school, whether it's the school that they're starting at or the school they want to go to, if they just look up that school and transfer options or transfer agreements, they will get to a whole page that shows them all of these types of things. So these are just a few different examples. This is a program agreement between Western Michigan University and Grand Rapids Community College. So you can see this is a good example of where like the example I gave of early childhood, the titles might have been the same, right? But this is one where it shows you, okay, great. If you do an Associate of Arts in Pre-Engineering Design Technology, that directly correlates to our Bachelor of Science in Engineering Design Technology. And so it then shows them specifically, I'll zoom in here a little bit. It shows them what the GRCC course is, what the title was, and what that equates to at Western Michigan, and how many credits or transfer hours they're getting for that class. So it just makes it really easy for students to see, hey, they said that I need this general chemistry class. This is the specific class that correlates. A lot of times I feel like the sciences, the chem, the math, all of those things, usually are a little bit easier for students to figure out what directly correlates. But when we get into the humanities, the social sciences, the English courses, those can be really confusing for students to figure out what exactly the equivalent is. So again, just really nice for it to spell it out here, saying, for those social science classes, you have to take 2 these are the ones that count. You can't just take any. I mean, you can, but they don't necessarily count towards their classes. Here's another example. So this is for Grand Valley, GRCC transfer agreement for music. And again, shows them specifically from their associates in arts degree with a music major or the music degree. It shows them these are the specific courses that they can get credit at Grand Valley for those courses. But this is a good example too, where some credits only transfer based on the specific program. So for this one, doing these classes is not necessarily going to help if they decide they want to major in psychology, right, at Grand Valley. So they have to be admitted to that program for these credits to transfer. This is an example of that direct admission agreement. So this is between a community college and Northern Michigan University, where they have said, hey, as long as you have a specific GPA, I can't remember what this one is, but as long as you have a specific GPA, you complete these classes, then you will be admitted to Northern Michigan University. So that can just kind of ease some concerns of students about getting admitted to a specific university for them after completing community college. Just a really great reassurance for them that, hey, if I stay on track and do what I need to do here, I'm going to be able to go here next. Really just trying to eliminate barriers for students to be able to transfer. This is an example of one of those 2+2 programs. So this is for Ferris State and Grand Rapids Community College. So we can see that they have certain classes that they have to complete still. It shows them what those courses are and everything. But they can see that they complete the 2 years at Grand Rapids Community College, and then they can transfer into the 2-year automotive management program at Ferris State. And just one more of that kind of program to program or 2+2 type. So this is Montcalm Community College. So they're associates in accounting, leading to a Bachelor of Arts in accounting. So it very specifically lines out, these are what you need to take at Montcalm Community College. These are the remaining things that you need to take at Alma College. And shows them very specifically what they're taking where. Students can also look at, and I have this linked in the slide deck for you, but the Michigan Transfer Network, students can look at how credits transfer between different schools. So let's say students know that they want to start off at Grand Rapids Community College and they think that they're interested in going to Calvin after. We can actually see for any course how it aligns. So we can see this is a great example because at Grand Rapids Community College, the class is called Sociology 130, whereas at Calvin, it is Anthropology 210. So students might not see that and be like, oh yeah, those totally correlate. But they have looked at the courses, the syllabus, and they have seen how they align, and they spell it all out here for students. They can look specifically at different subjects. So if they're like, hey, I want to see what English classes transfer, it shows them specifically which classes they are and what they align with. The last resource I want to show is just that Michigan transfer agreement page. So again, it outlines here what those classes are that students need to complete. And then again, shows specifically for each institution what that looks like for them. All right, I know that was a lot of information on the different options. Are there questions or things you want me to go back over related to that? Again, just, and we're going to talk a little bit more about kind of like questions and how you can help students prepare. But really, it's just making sure that your students are asking questions and that they are being upfront about what their intentions are so that the people at their community college can help them figure out what option makes the most sense for them. Did anyone? Oh, sorry. Okay, question. I see Julia answered, but I'll just read it just in case. Have you found that Transferology is a good tool for students to use to see what/how GRCC credit will transfer into other institutions. Is it pretty accurate? I do know that a lot of people do use Transferology. Julia said I tend to use Michigan Transfer Network instead. If the student is transferring to a Michigan university for a school in another state, we would work more closely with the school itself rather than Transferology. Anything else you want to add about that, Julia?
Yeah, it's not that it's a bad tool, but the Michigan Transfer Network tends to be updated more frequently in my experience. I do, when students were ready to transfer, as their advisor, I would actually also encourage them to talk with the school itself, rather than relying solely on the Michigan Transfer Network. Every once in a while, there's a weird department that has decided to sunset a class, and now your student is like, well, Michigan Transfer Network said it was fine, but now the school is saying no. So it's always good to check with that receiving institution as well.
Thank you. All right. So then we're going to talk about maximizing those credits. So I get a lot of questions, and I'm actually going to have another entire PD about, which option is best, dual enrollment, AP, all of that good stuff. But it is great to encourage students to take advantage of those dual enrollment options. So whether that is directly dual enrollment, thinking about AP or IB, where they can get credits. But again, it's just really important to know that different institutions look at these differently. Not in terms of admission necessarily, but in terms of how many credits they give. Some institutions, when you're thinking about AP credits, only give credits based on certain scores, where one school might accept a 3, another school requires a 5. Or, like in my case, I've shared this many times, I, took Calc BC, only got credit for the Calc AB part, still had to take the second part in college. So it only gave me half of the credit that I needed for that AP class. So just having them look at the different schools that they're considering and thinking about how those will play into it as well. And then just, again, having them communicate often with people to make sure that their credits are transferring seamlessly, and using those different tools to make sure that they are taking the classes that they need to at the community college and knowing how those are going to transfer at their four-year institution. All right. There we go. All right. So again, knowing that you are K through 12 counselors overwhelmingly, and you are not directly helping them with this transfer process, there are some things that you can do to help them kind of build long-term success, and things that you can recommend to students. One thing is that sometimes going to a community college and then transferring to a four-year university can be a little jarring for students, depending on the academic rigor of the program and what they're doing. Especially, we talked a little bit about match and fit earlier. So for students who are very academically undermatched, if the rigor of the program is not at the level that they can handle, some students can kind of just become complacent, or they're like, oh, I don't need to study. I just need to, they're kind of coasting. And so sometimes they can lose some of those good study habits that maybe they developed in high school. And then transferring to a four-year can be a little bit difficult. So it's important to encourage students to make sure that they're still practicing good study skills and using their resources. Directing students to tutoring centers, writing labs, other academic support services that are available, and making sure that they're still building those study habits and time management skills that they can then take with them to another institution. Also helping them understand the importance of faculty mentorship. I've heard this a lot from students that are thinking about transferring. They don't necessarily think about their community college professors as people who will be important to them later. If they're thinking about applying to grad school later, or they need recommendations, those professors can also provide valuable mentorship and be valuable resources to them, even if they transfer to another institution. Encouraging them to still get involved in student organizations. There is student life on community college campuses. And so even if they're not getting that traditional four-year living on campus experience there, there is still a lot of opportunities for them to get involved and engage with the community. And then psychosocial support. So just, thinking about as students adjust to college life, helping identify resources that they might utilize in terms of mental health, peer counseling, student wellness. All right, so that is actually, I believe, the end. So we got through that faster than I thought we would. Does anyone have any additional questions that we didn't cover? I'm just going back to the chat again. Any questions that we didn't cover, things that you're still wondering? Any specific challenges that you've had that you want to brainstorm how to address with students? You can feel free to throw it in the chat or come off the mic or come off mute on the mic.
So this is a little bit of a big picture question, but has there been any other further discussion about trying to come up with uniform dual enrollment processes for the community colleges? It seems it's tricky because there's so many different processes for each college. Has there been any progress with that?
I don't know if Julia has anything to add, but I'm going to say no. So especially here in Michigan, it's challenging because we don't have, some other states have like state networks of colleges, right? Like if you look at Minnesota, they have like essentially two big systems. And so it makes it really easy to kind of operationalize those types of things. Whereas here in Michigan, we are just so individualized that everyone does their own thing. And so I mean, potentially maybe there could be like consortiums of schools that come together similar to what we've had in the Michigan Assured Admissions Pact and that kind of stuff. But as far as I'm aware of, I don't think that there's been any like major movement in that area. But it's definitely a challenge. And again, so a lot of this is not necessarily, again, that we have to know the ins and or the specifics of this, but it's really just helping students better understand how they can find the information that they're looking for. But definitely challenging, especially if a student's not sure, like I'm not sure which college I'm going to go to yet. Will this credit actually transfer or not? Definitely be challenging.
One thing I do want to make note of as we talk about dual enrollment, if the student is taking dual enrollment classes at an institution, like, let's say GRCC, and then they continue at GRCC after high school, their grades follow them. And sometimes that is something that the student is not aware of. So making sure that you share that with them is really helpful. It also can impact their eligibility for financial aid. The community colleges have a requirement of what is called SAP, satisfactory academic progress. So a student whose GPA is below 2.0 and who not passing 68% of the credits that they've attempted, they are not eligible for financial aid anymore. And that can really, really matter if the student has tanked their dual enrollment classes during high school. So the more you can share that with them, the better setup that they'll be. And that includes community college guarantee. They still would not qualify for that.
Great points. Any other questions, wonderings, suggestions you have for others? Again, I'm hoping two big takeaways. One, encouraging students to use their resources. And again, I think a great point that Julia made is that, a lot of times in high school, like we're chasing after students to try to get things done. And in college, it is very much self-directed. They need to go and find and utilize those resources on their own. So just really, really getting that point home to them. That they need to utilize those resources to make sure that they're making this process as easy as possible. We have seen, like I said, a lot of movement in this area. We're seeing more and more institutions trying to make this a seamless process for students. and really building up those partnerships. And so just utilizing the resources that are available to them to know exactly how these things are going to work out. Again, especially if they know what institution they're thinking about transferring to, it's easy for them to go and find information about how those things are going to transfer, exactly what they need to do at their community college to be successful at their 4-year. Where we see some of that drop off from that 80% to that 30%, is students who are just like, this process is too confusing, or the credits aren't transferring the way that I thought they were going to, or, I took all these classes and they don't count for anything. So just making sure that they're working with their academic advisor and other resources to know exactly what is going to transfer for them. Okay, if you think of any other questions, feel free to put this in the chat. I'm going to put the sketch thing up here for you. So, yep, there you go, Terrence. So there is a QR code. I can, Julia, can you throw the link in the chat? It's on the bottom of the slide, like on the notes of the slide. Julia will put that in the chat, and then it'll ask you which session you went to, and then it asks for a code. Here is the code. Let me know if you have any problems with that. Okay, great. Julia put that link directly in the chat, so if you need that, there it is. I'll leave this up for just a minute. Again, if you have any other questions or thoughts, go ahead and throw those in the chat. I'll leave it up for just another second. If you need it, again, that link is in the chat for you to click on too. This was session 2 today. In the slide deck when I sent it out, these are all links to different resources. So those links to the Michigan Transfer Network, the Community College Guarantee, and then this is just some research and stuff that I thought was interesting that you might find interesting. And there's also some graphs and some resources available in these links as well. So some just resources for you and for students. I think it's all backwards here. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or Julia. And I didn't put a slide here, but we do have 2 more college prep PDs this year. One of them is going to be focused on kind of like which class is best. So, a lot of students wonder, like, should I take AP classes or IB or dual enrollment or do the tech center, or what is the best option for me? So it's going to be helping kind of think through that process. And the other one is about something that I can't remember at this moment. But you can find all of them on our PD Hub. Oh, yeah, no, our next one is about the value of a degree. So we hear more and more people are like, oh, we don't need to go to college. People should just go straight to the workforce. So really helping to understand like why students should, what the benefits of going to college still are, and the value of that. So if you're interested in either of those sessions, feel free to register for those and join us. And we do have a few additional kind of career exploration focused ones as well. All right, that code was 124. I'll put our emails up here again. But yeah, so again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Otherwise, that is all we have for today. Thank you all so much for coming. And let us know if we can be of any help.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.